If you take H2 Math and you study graphing techniques, have you ever wondered how Modulus actually works? Now, I know that this is a J1 topic and a lot of JC students have this topic for your first topic in H2 Math. And I know this very well because I teach a lot of J1 students in my Math Tuition Center here on Math Academy. And this is something that I'm about to teach them, so I thought I'd teach you this concept first before I go through this one more time in class this week. Now, over here, we are given y equals to fx, and let's just assume that y equals to fx is a quadratic curve. And the quadratic curve looks something like that. And we know that when we modulus a graph, there's two possible outcomes. We can either modulus the y value. So in this case, what we did is that we modulus the y value, or we modulus the x value. And I'm sure that in your tutorial notes, your school lectures, they already taught you what portion needs to flip. But have you ever wondered why we actually flip that portion? So explaining the first case on the left, right, when we modulus the y value, what this means is that the y value must always be bigger than or equals to 0 after we modulus the y. Because what modulus actually is just, so let's say I have modulus a is a, modulus negative a is a. What modulus basically is just measuring the distance from 0. So it just means measuring the distance from 0. So let's say if over here I draw a number line like that, let's say here is 0, here's a, here is negative a. The distance from 0 to a is a units. The distance from 0 to negative a is also a units. Distance has no direction, it's not a vector quantity. And that's why when we modulus a negative value, we get a positive value. And when we modulus a positive value, we get a positive value as well. So when we modulus y will always be bigger than or equals to 0. And therefore, for the original graph over here, so I'm just going to copy and paste it so that we have some sort of consistency. Any y value that was originally negative now becomes positive. So if we were to zoom into this graph over here, I'm just going to unlock this and I'm going to zoom in here. The original y value that we can see is negative. Actually, the bottom portion over here, this whole portion over here, this part over here, it's all negative. But we know that it has to be positive now. So for example, when x over here is this value, the corresponding y value is here. And let's say here is negative a. But now when we modulus it, it becomes positive a. So now x over here will be here instead. And then we keep doing this process again and again, and we realize that when we keep doing this process, we are essentially flipping the graph upwards. So only the negative portion below gets flipped upwards, and therefore this whole thing over here disappears and the graph becomes like that, whereby now the bottom portion flips upwards. Now for the other hand, when we mod the x value over here, what this means is that all the negative x values become bigger than or equals to 0. So if we were to take a look over here, let's say I paste this here, you see that this is y, this is x, and then here is 0. So if let's say here is a, here will be negative a. And originally negative a will correspond to this point over here. But since we mod this now, this negative a becomes a, and therefore it will have the same value as this, and therefore the corresponding value will no longer be this, but it will be the same on the right. And therefore the way that we actually can tackle this very simply, or what your school actually teach you to do, is to just keep the graph on the right and reflect it on the left. That means for any y value that is originally there for the negative x values, you remove it, because now the corresponding y value will take the same form as that of the positive x value, and that's why the graph becomes symmetrical about the y-axis. And that is exactly how modulus works in the context of graphing functions. So I know that this video is rather long, but if you're still watching this, that means you take your H2 Math seriously, and I appreciate that. And if you are looking to get more support in terms of your concepts, to really understand what's going on in H2 Math, then WhatsApp this number over here and I'll send you a link to my online library where I filmed a video for every single basic concepts just like this, as well as answers to many JC questions for all topics across H2 Math. And if that supports your learning, then WhatsApp this number and I'll send you all the relevant details.